What is going on, FA Nation? My name is Justin Fensterman, along with James Grande, and it's time to talk some DFS NBA here on FantasyAlarm.com. James, I don't think we spent enough time together. How are you, my man?
That's upsetting. I think we need to put in a request to get more time together, Fancy, personally.
I would love that, man. I would love that.
I'm doing well, man. Friday night, big slate. 11 games, so I'm ready to jump into the action. But after your 2-hour list of injuries is the daily occurrence here on the NBA live stream.
Yeah, it's very interesting as well. Some of the players on the slate that just got traded have not been ruled out. We'll tell you about that right now. Players that are out: Damian Lillard, Nikola Vucevic, Kyrie Irving is out, Stephen Curry is out, Victor Oladipo is out, Terrence Ross is out, Lonzo Ball is out, Malik Beasley is out, DeLon Wright is out, Kevin Porter Jr. not expected to play, Goran Dragic is out, Cole Anthony is out, Kevin Love is out, Daniel Tice is out, Monte Morris, Cam Reddish, Tristan Thompson all out, Al-Farouq Aminu and Gary Harris are out, David Nwaba, Landry Shamet is out, Terrence Davis is out, JaVale McGee is out, J.J. Redick, Gary Clark, P.J. Tucker, Bobby Portis, Josh Okogie, R.J. Hampton, Willie Cauley-Stein, and last but not least, James Johnson, at least for right now. But there are also some questionables and some doubtfuls. Luka Doncic is doubtful with some back tightness. James Harden, he is going to play. He was listed as questionable, now is going to play. Jimmy Butler, though, dealing with a little stomach illness, he is questionable. Draymond Green, also sick, he's questionable too. Colin Sexton is a game-time decision. Evan Fournier is questionable. Norman Powell, questionable. Kelly Olynyk, I saw, was questionable. Brad Wanamaker, questionable. Dennis Smith Jr., questionable. P.J. Tucker, like I said, was out. And Eric Pascal is questionable, James. I don't think enough injuries, my man.
Draymond Green upgraded to not listed on the injury report. And Bobby Portis added, he is listed as out for tonight. So just a couple news and notes there for you, Fancy.
There we go. So we'll keep track of all the injuries going into this monster slate. So without further ado, let's get into the John and Pemba playbook on FantasyAlarm.com. And let's start where we always start, and that is with the point guards. James, who are we spending up for?
So John has loved Trae Young lately, and I can't fault him for his desire to play him. It's a great matchup, too, a matchup that we just saw De'Aaron Fox exploit for 44 actual points just last night. So hard not to like Trae, and his price tag for a guy that we're used to paying upwards of $10K for is quite juicy, $8,700 over on FanDuel. I like John Wall quite a bit, and obviously John does as well. Nice contrarian tournament play. I mean, 2 games ago, we saw John Wall triple-double. He had a bad game against Charlotte, but the whole team did. So I'm not going to completely write him off here, especially in a really juicy matchup against a bottom 10 defense like Minnesota. So I think John has it pretty spot on with the top 2 spends, because let's face it, Fancy, there aren't many others. We know Lillard's out, Kyrie's out, Steph Curry's out, and Luka's doubtful. Like, the whole top of the point guard list is out this evening. So I'm with John. I like John Wall. I like Trae Young. I kind of do like Chris Paul, someone he doesn't have here, but I kind of do like Chris Paul in that upper mid-tier. I don't think I'd play him because there's really good value. Like, this slate has opened up some pretty dang good value.
Jamal Murray, too expensive, right?
You could always...
man. I don't know if, you're looking at DraftKings, I don't know at 82... if he's going to give us that 5x return. I mean, he should against the Pels, but again, 8,200, man, that's a lot more than he was going for. He was going for low 7Ks.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about Jamal Murray is he has 50 in his back pocket at any point. It's just, if the shot is going down, we can get 50. Like, we saw it against the Bulls. He has 34 actual. We get 50 fantasy points. But he's been consistent enough to, warrant the consideration, but I don't think I'd go there. You can go there in a tournament. It's fine, but I think there are better ways to spend your money here.
Let's go to the mid-tier. Do you think we even need to go to the mid-tier, or do you think we have enough, being that the slate is as big as it is and so many players out? do you think that we could go right to the value tier and skip the 7Ks and the 6K guys? What do you think, James?
I like Dennis Schroeder and where he's been at. I like Terry Rozier now that his position eligibility has shifted over to point guard. I think Rozier should firmly be in our player pool, especially if Jimmy Butler's out. I mean, we just saw Portland go for 125 points against this same Miami defense last night. So I think Rozier, Schroeder in the mid tier, but I do generally agree, Pensy. I think this value tier is where we are going to and should have some sort of exposure. Like on FanDuel, it's easy, right? You plug in Jalen Brunson or Kendrick Nunn.
So our ownership projection is very daunting. It's just we've seen it. It's a direct correlation every single time Luka's out. This guy goes off.
Yeah, and you know what's funny though? He's been really good with Luka this year too. He has definitely taken a step as a player in general. I mean, yes, Luka was bad in that Minnesota game, but Brunson wasn't. I mean, he had 16, 11, and 5, and that's a game with Luka Doncic, So it's pretty easy to play Jalen Brunson here, and sometimes even on big slates, like there's chalk that you just eat. This is chalk that you just eat, and you play Jalen Brunson. And if you want to pivot, it's Kendrick Nunn, and that's, contingent possibly on Jimmy Butler, but we already know Goran Dragic is out, so if you feel good about Nunn under 5K, knowing that Goran Dragic is out, I think that's fine too. But if Butler, Fancy, I'll turn this around to you. If Butler's ruled out, you can only play one of Kendrick Nunn against the Hornets or Jalen Brunson against the Indiana Pacers. Who would you reserve that last roster spot for?
Am I on FanDuel or DraftKings?
We're gonna go DraftKings. We're gonna go.
Damn you, Scuba Steve. It's not as much of a price break there. So now it almost forces me to want to go Nunn. But if we're talking FanDuel, I'm taking the price break and I'm going Brunson.
Agreed. I probably on DraftKings, I probably just play them both. Honestly, if we found out Butler was inactive prior to roster lock, I'd probably figure out a way to play both. But I tend to agree. On FanDuel, you definitely take the savings and go to Jalen Brunson.
Let's move on to shooting guard here and where to start. I mean, I don't really think we have to talk about this guy, but no James Harden, right?
Fancy, don't go there, okay? Don't do this again. Don't do this. Don't do this. We are absolutely playing James Harden, and we are moving on from there. It's just he's active. Like, play him. There's no one else on this team.
I love that. He's active. He's
active.
He's alive. You're playing him. Okay.
I mean, dude, like, this guy is incredible. In the fantasy realm. I mean, real life too. He doesn't get enough respect, but different discussion for a different day. James Harden, top spend up of the slate. Move on from there.
What do you think about, because John has both of these guys in his playbook, let's add the third one too. You got point guard Donnie there sitting there over 8K on both sites. You've got Anthony Edwards in that mid to late 7K range. And then you've got McCollum, who's kind of mid 7K. Do you take price point, or is there a specific matchup that stands out between the three of the twos?
I mean, I don't know if a matchup per se stands out. What stands out to me is no Damian Lillard. That's first and foremost. And I know they just played last night, but McCollum had 2 months off, so he's not like wearing down at all. I mean, he's played 37 plus minutes in 2 straight games, so he's clearly fresh. Now, does Orlando keep it close is ultimately the question. That's going to be tough. Nurkic back, yes. Lillard's out, but McCollum full capacity, possibly Norman Powell, Nurkic back at some form, and Orlando just doesn't have body. So if that game stays close, McCollum's elite. I love Anthony Edwards.
Let me ask you about this guy, if I can kindly interrupt you.
Yeah.
What do you think, Derek Jones? Is that too sneaky, or is that going to blow up in my face, or do you think I could get away with it for a night?
I don't hate Derek Jones because Gary Trent's gone. And
Rodney Hood too.
Rodney Hood's gone. So yeah, I think you can get away with Derek Jones. I think you can get away with Anthony Simons as well. I think Anthony Simons is McCollum is going to be the de facto point guard, but Simons is a good scorer. So I think both those guys are intriguing values, and I don't know if Jones would play in a blowout, maybe, but I know Simons would play in a blowout. So if you want to go that route as well, I think that could be intriguing.
And again, no Lillard in this one, so they don't have as much wiggle room, Portland, meaning that they're going to have to probably force themselves to play McCollum, but we're still waiting on Norman Powell. That's going to be the big one right there. And that will determine the rest of our value in this tier when it comes to shooting guard and small forward. You're going to be looking right down the barrel at Portland if Norman Powell is ruled out. I thought there were COVID rules prohibiting these guys from becoming active so soon, but I guess I was wrong there. He could play. How much of the offense has he been able to pick up in less than 24 hours? I don't know. So maybe they just throw him out there to see what he's got on his own for 10, 15 minutes. But I'll tell you this, I don't expect him to be getting a full workload, despite the fact that the Blazers have two other guys that they just lost. What do you think if he ends up playing?
I don't know. Like, if he ends up playing, I think I'm not ready to rule anything out, just considering what we've seen. Do I have, crazy desire to play him? No, but I also honestly wouldn't rule out 30 minutes. Just if they're going to let him play this soon, what do they have to lose against the Magic? So
right, that's true.
So I'm not ruling it out. I'm also probably not going to play him even if he's active.
Any other value shooting guards you like before we move on to the wings?
Yeah, I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker stands out. Going to start with Lonzo out. Has been tremendous, playing 30 minutes, giving us 30-plus fantasy points in back-to-back games. So Alexander-Walker, for me, is clear-cut value option. Bledsoe's minutes are depleted. Redick's out of town. No Lonzo. Him and Kira Lewis are the only shows in town. So I like NAW quite a bit.
Let's move on to small forward because you and I talked about this matchup just, a day or two ago. I mean, Jaylen Brown going back against the Bucks. Again, you can get to the Bucks through their two and in the post as well. There are two spots that you can attack Milwaukee. And with what we've seen with Boston, or lack thereof regarding their other options, I feel like Jaylen Brown, even at 8K, is safe on FanDuel.
Yeah, it's definitely a cash play for me. I don't think that there's a lot of upside at 8,400, especially on DraftKings. Can he get to 50? Sure. Kemba's looked really good, and obviously that Tatum guy is still around too, and Marcus Smart playing 37 minutes a night now. So I wouldn't call him a core play, but I would feel good if my lineup construction fell on Jaylen Brown and cash.
What do you think of the small forward options in the Cleveland Lakers matchups? You like them, or are you staying clear when it comes
I like Kuzma. I can't hate on the minutes. I think the minutes have been tremendous, and the shot attempts have been really good. So I like that fact. I like the ownership projection too, which is next to nothing. We kind of talked about this Larry Nance thing when Colin Sexton was ruled out. There could be more offense going through Nance. And then what does he do? He goes for 40-plus fantasy points, 5 assists, double-double, the whole shebang. Revenge narrative for Larry Nance, too, Fancy, if, drafted by the Lakers, played there for a couple seasons. So I like them both. I think they're both viable. They're not priorities, but I think you can use them in tournaments that's the way your roster builds fall.
Any other value threes that you think are a priority for us tonight?
I mean, I know the numbers suggest Tim Hardaway is the guy when Luke is out, but the last time we saw Luke out, it was Josh Richardson that went nuts. So I like using Josh Richardson more. I feel better about using Josh Richardson more compared to Tim Hardaway. He does more. Like Tim Hardaway, it has a very high usage rate. He takes a lot of shots.
Swings higher. That's all it is for Tim Hardaway Jr., I feel like.
Yeah, and if you catch Tim Hardaway on the right night, he can go for 30 actual without Luka Doncic. He can. Like, if he gets going, he's hard to stop sometimes. Josh Richardson is a good playmaker. He's a good rebounder. I like the price. So I could see myself rostering Richardson here, 5,200 on FanDuel, 54 on DK.
Let's move on to the power forwards. This is where things get a little tougher, Grande, because there's a lot of good options up top here.
Yeah.
You a lot taking advantage of what happened at the trade deadline, but now this is where we're going to have to make it count and take our shot here. At least I seem to think so. So let's start with Giannis in an incredible matchup. What are your thoughts on spending the big bucks for him?
Power forward, I think power forward on FanDuel is especially tough tonight because you have to pick between Giannis, Porzingis, and I think, if I recall, Bam is still a power forward on FanDuel. If producer John can give me that official word, I think he's still a power forward. So that would be so tough to leave one of those guys out. He is a center now. Thank you, FanDuel. Tip of the old ball cap to them, and thanks to John for the information. All right, so then, I'm okay with playing Giannis, but like I told you, I think Harden is the priority. I think Harden is the top spend. But when you see Giannis under 10%, doesn't that kind of spice things up a little bit, Fency? Like in a tournament? In cash, I think it's clear cut you play James Harden. But in a tournament at 10-7, where you're going to get Giannis at less than 10% ownership, that is, he has as much upside, if not more, than James Harden. So that's where I fall on Giannis. I prefer Harden, but if you were trying to use ownership or draft forecasting as your final determining factor in who you spend up on, Giannis is the lean.
All right, so then who is second in command when it comes to who you like? Porzingis?
Zinger, yeah, it's your boy. Yes. That's your boy.
Here's the thing, man, and maybe you could tell me. I can't seem to figure it out. Indiana's front court by name, very strong on paper. Especially, when you say a front court, you include the small forward. Let's take the small forward out of the situation. You would think that Miles Turner, Domantas Sabonis would be threatening on both sides of the ball. They're not really, though. And you could get to them. And I feel like in this matchup with Porzingis, even if Luka wasn't, I'd still like Porzingis under 8K.
Miles Turner, for the elite shot blocker that he has turned into, you see this kind of often where shot blockers don't always translate to good defenders. He just sells out for blocks. So you can exploit Miles Turner whether or not he's blocking 3 to 5 shots a night. That doesn't necessarily matter. If Porzingis has 3 shots blocked and he hits 15 other shot attempts, it doesn't matter about those 3 shots that are blocked. So I agree, but it is more name value than actual defense being played. So 7,500 is stupid cheap. Obviously, they didn't know that Luka was going to be out, so we have to take advantage of that fact. But even 8,100 without Luka is too cheap. It's going to be a decision, though, on DraftKings, especially, too. I know Bam is a center, but if you're building with Harden, right, and let's say we know James Harden, or let's say Jimmy Butler is ruled out, it's going to be a tough decision whether you're going to lean Porzingis or Bam because, we've seen Porzingis we saw him look great against Minnesota the other night. Now he's alone as the lead dog, but we saw Bam last night as the lead dog.
Charlotte, bro, Charlotte.
I know it's Charlotte. I'm just saying, it's something to consider because you won't be able to play Harden, Porzingis, and Bam on DraftKings. The salary just really, you'd have to really find dumpster dive for the rest of your lineup to do that.
Speaking of dumpster diving, you like any power forwards in that realm of dumpster diving that we could complement our Stars and Scrubs lineup that you're trying to tell us we can't make, Grande, but somehow, someway, we're going to all prove you wrong and we're going to win. Thank you for the motivation, my friend.
You're welcome. Jay Crowder's a nice play in all formats, I think. That Toronto defense has been bad this month. Bottom 5 in the league. I think bottom 4. I think Boston, Minnesota, and Sacramento were the 3 teams worst this month, something like that. So Toronto is exploitable everywhere right now, and give me Jay Crowder for under 5K across the industry.
I like that very much. Let's move on to the final position, center, because you've got Jokic there. I mean, Towns versus Houston, Christian Wood, not a good defender. And then we talked about Bam. So, I mean, when you're looking up top here, who are some of the centers that you like that are more on the expensive side, besides Bam Adebayo, especially?
Well, I was going to say, like, that's the priority if Butler's out.
I know who I'm dealing with.
I mean, I'll go this. Let me just one point on Bam. I'm okay with even playing Bam if Jimmy plays. How about that?
I've been with that all day long, as you know.
I want everyone else to know, because I think that everyone's under the assumption that we can only play him if Butler's out. Not the case. I will say, however, center is loaded tonight. Our rule fancy Clint Capella under 8K, DraftKings 7,800.
It's over. It's over.
Right. I mean, and the Warriors are 29th in rebounding. I mentioned to you that when we were talking about Richaun Holmes last night. Richaun Holmes has a huge game against Golden State. That's a play. I like Christian Wood. I don't love the minutes, but I like Christian Wood, the talent, and the matchup. Minnesota's dead last against center. So there's no reason not to like Christian Wood. Jared Allen. Everyone out of town. No JaVale McGee. Going up against, a flat-footed Marc Gasol who's playing 10 minutes and a short Montrezl Harrell. Jared Allen has a great spot.
Can I ask you something about Jared Allen?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the stats, and I know lately he's been more in the double-double land, and that's helped him be, especially on DraftKings in the late 30s. But I look at the matchup, and I know it was a double-digit game, but how he was only able to put up 11 and 9 versus the Kings, it kind of scares me off of him when I have Clint Capella staring me at the face at 7,800 on DK.
So that was my exact argument on today's podcast with John when he brought it up. I will say, though, if you go over to FanDuel, he's $1,300 cheaper than Capella.
Right.
So I 100% agree. Capella is the guy in DraftKings, no doubt.
Should we not pay for Towns? I mean, it's an excellent spot for him, but I just feel like we named at least. I mean, is Towns really gonna produce that much more than Bam without Butler and Capella?
So he can, right? That's the question. Like, if Butler plays, then I think Towns becomes more of an option, because then you're probably a little more lukewarm on Bam. Or, I'm not, but some people will be. Houston's dead last in rebounding. And, Towns isn't the greatest rebounder in the world, but he is averaging 10 rebounds per game. Like, that's nothing to scoff at.
He'll get the job done in this matchup.
Right. So I think Towns is definitely in play. Again, though, like, roster construction wise, you can do it. Harden, Towns, like, again, I'm telling you, I'm starting every lineup I have tonight. Not every lineup, but most lineups I'm starting tonight with James Harden. I mean, let me do this real quick. If on DraftKings you start Harden, Towns, you have $4,800 for the rest of your lineup.
On average, Harden, Towns.
$4,800. So,
okay.
Like, that is doable, but, like, on an 11-game slate, there are a lot of mid-tier guys that you're going to miss out on, and I don't think you need to do it, but you can. It's a fine tournament play considering it's an elite matchup. How about that?
Well, I'll say this. Where I start there with that average spend, I'm, like, constructing this lineup during this stream here. You can put Isaiah Stewart in there right off the bat.
Jalen Brunson. I think Jalen Brunson would be a key cog in that lineup.
Oh, you are so right.
Let's go to, who does Johnny have at power forward?
Do we go with a Mannion or not yet? If we're going that cheap,
we could go Mannion.
Right. I like this. We've not done this constructing a DraftKings lineup. Started with Karl Anthony Towns. Right now, for those that are just joining us here during this building design here, at the architects you got here, we've got Karl Anthony Towns and James Harden. And then we've got Jalen Brunson and Isaiah Stewart. And we still have a couple of forwards, 3 forwards that we need, and another guard with under 5,000 on average to spend, Grande. That's it. You're right. It's a challenge, bro.
And that's why, like, I think, like, let's just say you go let's just say you go Bam, right, over Towns. Like, now you're sitting at, with that same construction with Brunson, Stewart, you're now sitting at $5,400 a player. Like, that makes things easier, right? Like,
Right.
and like you said, if there's no Butler, there's like, I mean, Bam has just as high of a ceiling as Karl-Anthony Towns does, if I'm being blunt. So, you know, I think someone who John doesn't have in the playbook, Kem Birch at 4,400 could be an option, just considering the Magic are going to have 8 players tonight. They're going to all play, right? They're literally all going to play.
They have to, or else they forfeit.
Unless, you're right. If we're assuming there's no Butler, Kendrick Nunn is 49. So now we have 61 for a small forward and forward.
And boom, there's Saddiq Bey at 61.
Saddiq Bey, 61. I was even thinking, Fancy, hear me out here. Someone that you and I were talking about a little bit from John's playbook, Josh Richardson, 54.
Yep.
And then we have 6,900, and we can go Andrew Wiggins at the forward spot.
I mean,
thoughts?
I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to complain about that. No Curry going up against the Hawks. Okay.
I mean,
fast-paced game. I'm down.
So the final constructed lineup, if we do Bam over Towns, is Harden, Brunson, Richardson, Birch, which obviously, not exciting.
Up in there, man, if you're going to go high dollar like that, know?
Yep. And we're obviously hoping Kem Birch shows up. But Bam, Kendrick Nunn, Wiggins, Isaiah Stewart. Boom.
Look at that. We just created the lineup for you. You're welcome. And you're going to go to fantasyalarm.com and catch John and Pemba's playbook for the rest of it. Any other value setters, Grande, you like?
Yes. John's favorite player in the NBA, DeAndre Ayton, has been tremendous the last 3 games. Another center just to muddy up the waters. Fancy, I know that you've I don't know. I can't get a read if you love DeAndre Ayton or hate him. I think you love him, but you hate the way that he's played this year. But he's been really good lately. Really efficient from the floor. He's been very active on the glass. Getting to the free throw line as well. So
right.
I like DeAndre.
So for tonight, yes, it's a good spot. The Raptors have no idea what they're doing, and you can drive. I've said this before on the stream.
Hey.
James, you could drive on Pascal Siakam. But going into the year, I thought that Jalen Smith, the rookie from Maryland that Phoenix drafted, I thought that he was going to spell Ayton a little bit, handle all the blue-collar dirty work, and then have Ayton do his thing from the elbow. And I thought we were going to see tremendous growth. That hasn't been the case, though, because who's been starting next to him? It's been Jay Crowder, who sits there at the arc the entire time. So it forces Ayton to do DeAndre Ayton stupid moves that he did last year, and I had to wait another year. So I was actually very excited, but I've been a little let down. But the production over the last 3 games, like you mentioned, has been there. He scored over 20 points in 2 of his last 20 actual points in 2 of his last 3 games. So that's something to consider right there, James. A huge slate to dominate. Give James a follow on Twitter at @the_real_grande. Give me a follow at Fensty Sports. Get in the chat. Get those lineups set. Let's dominate the monster slate because there isn't any other option. We just win.